And I think this kind of segues into a clip that we have. We have Baker Motley discussing how it was like to be a Black woman in this environment. Let's take a look.
In Mississippi generally, and throughout the South for that matter, it was a custom from slavery to address blacks either as boy or women by their first names. Black women were not accorded the dignity of being addressed as Miss or Mrs. And when I first went to Jackson, Mississippi in 1949, I think it was the Jackson Daily News was the name of the newspaper. They refused to address me as Mrs. Motley. They referred to me as the Motley woman. And some of the lawyers who opposed me in the cases which I brought in Mississippi refused to address me as Mrs. Motley. And of course, that was something which surprised me a great deal because I wasn't accustomed to that, having been born and reared in New Haven, Connecticut, and living in New York. I knew about it, but when it actually happens, you are really shocked that any person who calls himself educated and professional, like a lawyer, would refuse to address another lawyer as Miss or Mrs. But that's what actually happened.
Hmm.
Tamiko, it's so striking to hear her say that and hear it in her own words. Did you find any sense that, those type of indignities that she had to encounter, that they affected her in any way, whether, professionally when she's arguing a case and meeting these indignities, or even personally, if it took a toll on her?
Sure. Thurgood Marshall taught Black lawyers not to react, not to show anger when they were verbally assaulted in the way that Motley just described. And she took that advice. She did not display anger. This was true when she was a lawyer. It was true when she was in politics. And it was true even when she was on the bench and sometimes encountered disrespectful counsel. And yet, in the context of Mississippi and those white male lawyers who were disrespectful to her, she did raise her voice in complaint. She asked the judge to instruct the lawyer to call her by her right name, and certainly not to refer to Motley as her or she, these indirect references that one of the lawyers used. And thereafter, he referred to Motley as the New York counsel, which is an improvement, I suppose, but still a display of disrespect. I'm certain that Motley took notes and was affected in some way by those kinds of shows of disrespect. But there's something about her having been raised in New Haven by West Indian parents who taught her that she was superior that is important to note here. I argue in my book that while we don't often talk about that dynamic between West Indians and African American Blacks, so her father actually taught her that she was superior. They were superior to African Americans, particularly in the South. It actually was a protective armor for Motley. So in that clip, I think you can detect that she's truly bewildered by this man who wouldn't shake her hand, who wouldn't call her by her right name, because she had the attitude, well, I'm a graduate of Columbia Law School, and I'm from the Bakers of New Haven, and of course I should be accorded respect. And I think that kind of attitude was helpful to her throughout her careers.